The bread you think is healthy is making you sicker than white bread. I know that sounds like an exaggeration. I thought the same thing for years. I stood in the grocery store, picked up the whole wheat loaf, felt good about myself, and went home thinking I was doing something right. I wasn't. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. And you'll have a recipe for the only bread I actually feel good about eating. 5 ingredients. No blood sugar spike. No anti-nutrients. And once you taste it, you won't miss the old stuff. Let's start with the thing that's been repeated so often, it just became accepted as truth. Whole wheat bread is healthier than white bread. It sounds reasonable. Whole grain, more fiber, more nutrients. That's what the packaging says. That's what most nutrition advice has said for decades. But when researchers actually sat down and looked at the data, not one study, not two, but a meta-analysis pulling together 13 different studies, they found something that should have made headlines everywhere. The average glycemic index of whole wheat bread was identical to white bread, both sitting at 71. To put that in perspective, table sugar has a glycemic index of 65. That means the bread you've been eating, because it seemed like the responsible choice, is actually spiking your blood sugar harder than straight sugar. And in some of those studies, certain types of whole wheat bread performed even worse than white bread. Not slightly worse, measurably, consistently worse. Now, before you reach for the white bread, that's not the answer either. Both of these products are doing something similar to your blood sugar. The difference is just that we've built an entire industry around convincing you that one of them is virtuous. It isn't. But here's the question that should be sitting with you right now. If the glycemic index is the same, why does it even matter which one you choose? The answer is that blood sugar is just the beginning of the problem. Phytic acid. Most people have never heard of it, and that's by design, because if it were on the label, it would be a lot harder to sell whole wheat products as health food. Phytic acid lives in the bran, the outer layer of the wheat grain that gets removed when you make white bread. And what phytic acid does is bind to minerals, specifically iron, zinc, calcium, and magnesium. It grabs onto them and prevents your body from absorbing them. So here's what's actually happening when you eat whole wheat bread. You're consuming a product that your body cannot fully use. The minerals are there on paper, but phytic acid is essentially locking them behind a door your digestive system can't open. You're eating something that looks nutrient-dense but is actively blocking nutrient absorption. That's not a minor inconvenience. Over time, if these minerals are chronically low in your body, you start to feel it. In your energy levels, your immune function, your bone density, your sleep, and most people never connect that back to their healthy bread. White bread, ironically, doesn't have this problem. The bran, and with it, the phytic acid, is removed in processing. So while white bread isn't a health food by any stretch, it doesn't carry this particular anti-nutrient burden. Which raises the obvious question: if we're removing the problematic compounds to make white bread, what exactly are we celebrating about whole wheat? There's another compound in whole wheat that I want to address carefully, because the research here is still developing and I don't want to overstate it, but the evidence is consistent enough that it's worth knowing about. This compound has been shown in research to bind to insulin receptors in ways that create problems. Insulin receptors need to function cleanly for your body to process blood sugar efficiently. When something interferes with that signaling, it contributes to inflammation. And chronic, low-grade inflammation is at the root of a long list of health problems that most people are trying to avoid. This compound is, again, significantly reduced in white bread because of how white flour is processed. I'm not telling you to eat white bread. I'm telling you that both of these products have serious problems and that the marketing language around whole grain has been more effective than the science behind it. The real takeaway isn't to switch from one to the other, is to step back and ask whether either of them belongs in your daily diet at all. And then there's glyphosate. This is the herbicide used in Roundup and has become relevant to the bread conversation in a way that most people don't know about. Glyphosate is sprayed on wheat crops, not just as a pesticide during growing, but specifically before harvest to dry the wheat out and speed up the harvesting process. This means the glyphosate is applied close to the time the grain is collected, which means it's present in the grain itself. When researchers have compared glyphosate levels across different crops, wheat comes out high. Some analyses suggest wheat carries up to 3 times more glyphosate than some other GMO crops. The reason this matters is that glyphosate functions as an antibiotic. That's actually part of how it works as a herbicide. It disrupts biological processes. And when you consume it regularly, it can disrupt your gut microbiome the same way an antibiotic would. The microbiome isn't a side issue. It affects digestion, immune function, mental health, and more. Degrading it consistently over years through what you're eating every day is not a small thing. Again, white bread contains less glyphosate than whole wheat because the processing removes some of it along with the bran. But both are still products made from conventionally grown wheat, and neither is the answer. So what is the answer? You've been patient with the problem. Here's the solution. The bread I'm going to walk you through uses 5 ingredients: almond flour, psyllium husk powder, baking powder, salt, and eggs, which you'll separate, plus melted butter. That's it. No wheat, no glyphosate, no phytic acid. And because almond flour is the base, the glycemic impact is genuinely low. Not marketing. Speak low, but actually low in a way that won't send your blood sugar on the ride you've been trying to avoid. The technique that separates a dense, disappointing low-carb bread from one you'll actually want to eat is in how you handle the eggs. You separate them. The whites go into a clean, dry bowl, and you beat them with a hand mixer until you get stiff peaks. This isn't optional. This is the step. What you're doing is trapping air inside a protein structure, and when that goes into the bread, it gives the loaf the lift and the airy texture that makes it feel like real bread. Skip it, and you get something closer to a dense brick. Do it right, and you get something genuinely satisfying. Here's the full process. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. In a large bowl, mix together your almond flour, psyllium husk powder, baking powder, and salt. In a separate bowl, whip the egg whites to stiff peaks. In a third bowl, mix the egg yolks with the melted butter. Add the yolk mixture to your dry ingredients and stir until completely combined. At this point, the batter will be very thick. That's exactly right. Don't add anything. Now gently fold in the egg whites in 3 additions. The goal here is to keep as much air in the mixture as possible. Don't stir. Fold. Line a standard loaf pan with parchment paper, transfer the batter in, and bake for 30 to 35 minutes. Then, and this matters more than you might think, let the bread cool completely in the pan before you slice it. A minimum of 30 minutes. The structure is still setting as it cools. Cut into it too early and it collapses. Give it the time and you'll get clean slices from a loaf that holds together. A slice of this with some good butter alongside a meal is something I genuinely look forward to, not because I'm compromising, because it's actually good and because I know what's in it and what isn't. Here's where we've landed. 2 things you thought were different, whole wheat bread and white bread, turn out to have nearly identical effects on your blood sugar, and both carry issues that most people have never been told about. The healthy option wasn't at the grocery store. It was something you could make at home in under an hour with ingredients that won't work against your body. You came into this video probably reaching for the brown loaf out of habit. By tomorrow, you could have something sitting on your counter that's genuinely different. The action is simple. Pick up almond flour and psyllium husk powder on your next grocery run. That's the one step. Everything else follows from that. What I'm curious about is this. Which part of this surprised you most? Was it the glycemic index comparison, the phytic acid, the glyphosate? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and your answer actually shapes what I cover next. In the next video, I'm going to show you the healthiest complete meal you can build, not just the bread, but everything around it. The combination of foods that gives your body what it needs without the usual trade-offs. If that sounds like something you want to see, make sure you're subscribed. Not because I'm supposed to say that, but because this is the kind of content that takes a while to find once the algorithm stops showing it to you. Everything I've shared here is based on published research and a genuine interest in cutting through the noise. This isn't medical advice, and your own situation may be different, but the information is real, and now it's yours to use.